My boyfriend had a low sperm count, so when he found an abandoned baby on the roadside, he begged me to give up my study abroad plans and adopt him. I agreed. We married for 30 years. I poured my life into raising that child as my own. Then, the year our son finally settled into his own life, I was diagnosed with a terminal illness. Faced with astronomical medical bills, my husband and son sat me down. The message was clear. I should give up. It's terminal. Why waste the money? Mom, Dad's right. I have a future to think about. Don't be selfish. After I died, my husband married his first love in a joyous ceremony. Our son even hugged his father's first love and called her mom. That was when I learned the truth. Abandoned son was in fact my husband's child with his first love all along. When I opened my eyes, I was back on the day. My boyfriend held out a baby, asking if we could keep him. I glanced at him, then slammed the door shut. Take him to an orphanage. Julian panicked. How can you say that? I looked at Julian's self-righteous expression and gave a bitter laugh. Why not? I know nothing about raising a child. Julian's brows furrowed. Serena, this is a life. Look how pitiful he is. We're getting married soon anyway. Wouldn't it be nice to raise a child together? Ahead of time, Julian spoke with a sincerity that I'd heard countless times in my previous life. Now it sounded utterly repulsive. But back then, I actually believed him. My parents wanted me to study abroad and pursue my dreams. But for Julian and this child, I tore up my plane ticket. From that moment on, a long journey of sacrifice began. In the end, after I died, my husband inherited my family's enormous wealth and lived a blissful life with his mistress and their illegitimate child. He is indeed a life. And he's pitiful. That's why he should be sent to an orphanage, where professional caregivers can look after him. But Julian paused. My mom can help you. I scoffed internally. Help. In my last life, his mom did help for a few days. But soon after, she had a stroke and became paralyzed. I ended up juggling childcare and caring for my mother-in-law. It wasn't until she died, and I looked through her medical records, that I realized she was never paralyzed. He just wanted to lie around and be waited on hand and foot. I took a deep breath. Julian, I think I need to reconsider our relationship. You know, my parents have always wanted me to study overseas. With that, I started to close the door. Julian saw this and wedged his foot in the door, his face etched with anxiety, about to say something else. Just then, hurried footsteps sounded outside. A young man ran over Julian. Quick. The company needs you for something. Mark glanced at me, then at the bundle in Julian's arms. Expression subtle. I saw it and sneered inwardly. Always the same trick. Julian had clearly planned this, using Mark as his leverage, probably hoping I'd soften and offer to take the baby while he went to work. Then he could smoothly offload the child into my home and easily get out of it. This time I didn't say a word. I just watched him calmly, my hands clasped behind my back. A clear gesture of refusal. Mark was still urging him. Julian finally made up his mind, abruptly turning to me, his face pleading. He shoved the swaddled baby into my arms. Serena, please. I'll come back and help you with him as soon as I'm done. The unexpected weight, carrying the faint scent of baby powder, crashed into my arms. The next second, Julian was gone, vanished from sight. The familiar yet alien sensation sent a shiver through me. Countless fragmented memories surged forward, rushing him to the hospital late at night when he had a fever. My tears of joy when he first called me mom. And then Julian snatching away my life-saving medicine. While Leo coldly said, Mom, stop fighting it. Just go peacefully. You've wasted my parents' lives. Don't waste my son's now. I had given up so many opportunities staying home to care for him. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say, this child grew up sucking the very life, blood out of me. In the end, he became an ungrateful wretch. I lowered my gaze to the child, gritted my teeth, and made a decision. The next morning, urgent knocking woke me up. My parents were startled awake too. It was Julian at the door. As expected. Good morning, Julian. So early? Even though Serena's mom was a bit displeased with Julian, they were still longtime neighbors. So she greeted him warmly. Have you had breakfast? Kumain. Join us. The more welcoming they were, the more uncomfortable Julian seemed. He had no appetite, his mind solely on his child. He managed a forced smile. No thank you. Eva eaten. I came to see Serena and the baby. He spoke, his gaze sweeping past my parents to me. Baby? Serena's mom was genuinely confused this time. Julian, what baby are you talking about? What baby? Julian froze, his voice rising in urgency. The little boy I brought yesterday. I gave him to Serena. I sipped my coffee, not even lifting my eyelids. Seeing my nonchalance, Julian lunged forward, trying to grab my arm. Serena, where's the baby? His actions were rough, and Serena's dad's face immediately darkened. Talk. Don't touch. I really did give her a baby. Julian's voice trembled with desperation. He turned to me almost shouting, Serena, where is the baby? I chuckled softly. You're so anxious. Could it be the baby is yours? The living room fell silent instantly. Julian's expression stiffened. What are you talking about? I found him by the roadside. So I put him back on the roadside. Really? I stood up calmly. Since he was found. Of course I sent him back to where he belongs. Julian's pupils contracted sharply. Where did you send him? The roadside. I said lightly. Didn't you pick him up from the roadside? I put him back there. What if his parents who abandoned him had a change of heart and came back to look for him? What did you say? Julian suddenly grabbed my wrist. His grip incredibly tight, making my bones creak. Serena, don't joke with me. Serena's dad immediately stepped forward, pulling at him. Julian let go. I yanked my hand free, rubbing my reddened wrist. I don't have time to joke with you. I still need to pack for my study abroad trip. Study abroad? Julian looked bewildered. How can you go abroad? Who will take care of the baby if you leave? Serena's mom was utterly confused. Baby? What are you two talking about? And Serena's classes overseas start next month. We've had this plan for ages. Julian took a deep breath, forcing a smile at Serena's mom. I'll explain this to you later. He turned and grabbed my arm again, his voice pleading. Serena, just tell me where the baby is. That's a life. I looked at his self-righteous, scheming face, my blood boiling, just as I was about to raise my hand to slap him. Shit. Rachel from across the street suddenly poked her head out her face. Friend. They found an abandoned baby in our community garden this morning. His little face was burning red, and the ambulance just took him away. Poor thing. Julian's face drained of color. He stared at me, his eyes bloodshot. You really threw him away. I was stunned by Rachel's words. I had clearly left the baby at Chloe's doorstep. How did he end up in the community garden? But before I could even process it, Julian violently grabbed me and dragged me outside. Julian, what are you doing? Serena's dad roared. Julian ignored him completely. To the hospital now. Serena's mom tried to stop him, but was roughly shoved aside by Julian. I was half dragged, half shoved into a taxi. Julian, trembling, yelled for the driver to take us to the children's hospital. In the car, he kept mumbling, He'll be okay. He'll be okay. I watched his distraught state with cold eyes. In my past life, when I was curled in bed, shaking with fever and pain, begging him to take me to the hospital, he had simply looked at me and said, Drink some hot water. You'll be fine now. For his child, he was frantic with worry. How ironic. It truly is easy to be indifferent until the pain hits you directly. At the hospital's emergency room, Julian frantically questioned the nurses until he found the baby's whereabouts. He dragged me, stumbling towards the hospital room. Just as we reached the door, we heard a woman's sobs. Pushing the door open, we saw Chloe holding the infant, whose face was flushed and breathing labored. She pressed her cheek against his forehead, tears streaming down her face. Don't be scared, baby. Don't be scared. Her voice was choked with emotion. Anyone could see how worried she was about this child. Julian rushed in, his eyes instantly red. He whirled around, glaring at me, his gaze overflowing with resentment. Serena, are you happy now? The baby's burning up. Pneumonia, convulsions. His voice was hoarse. He's so young. How could you be so cruel? I looked at the fragile little life, my heart completely unmoved. In my past life, they had drained my youth and health, climbing higher and higher, using my family's resources. In the end, they watched me draw my last breath with cold indifference. His life or death held no meaning for me. Cool. My gaze shifted to Chloe. Julian. Yesterday I personally placed this child at Chloe's doorstep, and even left a note. So how is it that I paused? My tone laced with suspicion? This child was left out in the cold all night, to be found in the community garden this morning. Chloe looked at me, her eyes wide with shock. Serena, what are you talking about? This is the first time I've seen this poor child today. I'm a nurse here, transferred to pediatrics to help out. I saw this baby was so sick and unattended. She started crying again. You really left this child at my door. How could I possibly leave him outside all night? If I had seen this child first, I would have taken good care of him. The three of us grew up together. You know what kind of person I am. I frowned at her words. I used to think Chloe was kind and innocent, which is why, after I gave up my spot at a prestigious overseas university, I had my dad pull strings to give it to her, watching my best friend fulfill the dreams. I couldn't. I did it willingly. I just never imagined that Chloe would transform into my son's biological mother and Julian's moonlight goddess. Those years I spent sick in bed, I finally realized how foolish I had been. I watched with cold eyes. Julian watched the tears track down Chloe's face. his own expression flickering with something complex and pained. He took a deep breath, his gaze hardening as he stepped decisively between Chloe, the baby and, "That's enough, Chloe. I believe you." Then he pulled a document from his bag. He turned it slowly, forcing the bold black letters of the header into my line of sight. Adoption certificate. And below it, unmistakable, was my signature. The hospital room was sterile, white, and smelled of disinfectant and lies. My signature was scrawled on the document Julian held up. It looked authentic. The loops of the S, the sharp tail of the A. But I hadn't signed anything. When did I sign this? I asked, my voice calm, contrasting the storm brewing in my chest. Julian didn't blink. Yesterday, when I gave you the baby. You were flustered, sure, but you agreed. You signed the initial intake papers I had prepared, just in case. Liar, I said. Chloe sniffled from the bedside, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. Serena, just admit it. You panicked. You didn't want the responsibility. It's okay to be scared, but to leave him out in the cold, and then lie about bringing him to me? The gaslighting was masterful. A two-pronged attack. Julian with the proof, Chloe with the emotional manipulation. In my past life, I would have crumbled. I would have questioned my own memory. I would have apologized. But I remembered the cold wind on my face last night when I walked to Chloe's apartment. I remembered taping the note to the swaddle. I remembered ringing the doorbell and watching from the shadows as she opened the door, looked down, and then crucially, looked around before dragging the baby inside. She hadn't left him out all night. She had taken him in, then staged finding him in the garden this morning to cover her tracks and frame me. I didn't sign that, I repeated. And that baby was in your apartment last night, Chloe. I saw you take him inside. Chloe's eyes widened, a flash of genuine fear replacing the practiced sorrow. You're delusional. Why would I hide a baby? Because he's yours, I said. The silence that followed was heavy. The beep of the heart monitor seemed to grow louder. Julian laughed, a harsh, incredulous sound. Mine? Ours? Serena, have you lost your mind? Chloe and I are just friends. We grew up together, just like you and me. This is jealousy. Pure and simple. He shook the paper at me. This is a legal document. You are the legal guardian of this child now. If you abandon him again, it's child neglect. You could go to jail. Your parents could be shamed. There it was. The trap. He had forged my signature to bind me to this child, to force me into the life of servitude I had just escaped. I looked at the document again. If that's a legal document, I said, pulling out my phone, then let's get the police involved. Let's have a handwriting expert verify it. And while we're at it, let's check the CCTV footage from Chloe's apartment complex last night. Julian's hand wavered. Chloe stopped crying. You wouldn't, Julian hissed. Think about your parents. Think about the scandal. I am thinking about them, I said. I'm thinking they deserve a daughter who isn't a doormat. I dialed 911. The police arrived within 15 minutes. Officer Miller was a no-nonsense woman with a sharp eye. She took one look at the screaming baby, the weeping nurse, and the belligerent father, and separated us immediately. I told my story simply. My boyfriend brought a baby. I refused. I took the baby to the address of the woman I suspected was the mother. I left him safe. Julian told a different story. He claimed I accepted the baby, signed the papers, then had a mental break and dumped the child. Chloe claimed total ignorance. But technology doesn't lie. We'll need to check the security cameras at Ms. Chloe's residence, Officer Miller said, jotting down notes. Chloe went pale. The cameras in my building have been broken for weeks. The landlord hasn't fixed them. I smiled. Really? Because I saw the red recording light on the camera above your door blinking last night. I hadn't, actually. But Chloe didn't know that. She panicked. Well, maybe they were fixed yesterday. I don't know. But why are we focusing on me? The baby has pneumonia. He needs care. The baby is in the care of the hospital, Officer Miller said. Right now, we are investigating a potential case of child abandonment and forgery. She turned to Julian. Sir, where did this adoption paper come from? It's not notarized. It's not stamped by any agency. Julian stammered. It's a private agreement. A declaration of intent. So it's not a legal adoption certificate, Miller clarified. Meaning MS. Serena has no legal obligation to this child whatsoever. Julian's face crumbled. His leverage was gone. But she promised. I promised nothing, I said coldly. And now I'm leaving. I have a flight to catch in 3 days. You can't leave, Julian shouted, lunging at me again. Officer Miller stepped in, hand on her taser. Sir, step back. Miss Serena is free to go. I walked out of the hospital room. As the door closed, I heard the baby start to wail again. It was a heartbreaking sound. But this time, it wasn't my heart breaking. I didn't go home. I went straight to a private detective agency. In my past life, I was blind. In this life, I had money, and I knew exactly where to look. I need proof of paternity, I told the detective, Mr. Henderson. And I need it fast. I handed him a strand of hair I had plucked from Julian's jacket when he grabbed me earlier. It was a reflex I had developed over years of suspicion in my previous life. Gather evidence, even when you don't know what for. And for the baby? Henderson asked. The baby is in pediatrics at City General. His name is listed as John Doe for now. He's in room 304. Henderson nodded. I can get a sample. It'll cost you. Money is no object. 2 days later, the day before my flight, Henderson called me to his office. He slid a manila envelope across the desk. You were right, he said. 99.9% probability. Julian is the father. I felt a grim satisfaction. And the mother? That was harder, since I couldn't get a sample from her directly without raising suspicion. But he pulled out a photo. It was a picture of Chloe and Julian, 5 years ago, on a beach trip. She looked visibly pregnant in a bikini, though she was hiding it well with angles. I did some digging into her medical history. She took a sabbatical from nursing school exactly 9 months before this baby was born. Went to stay with an aunt in the countryside. Came back a few months ago. Refreshed it. The baby is 6 months old. I calculated. The timeline fits perfectly. There's more, Henderson said. Julian has been transferring money to an account under Chloe's aunt's name for the last year. Child support in all but name. I took the file. Thank you. This is everything. What are you going to do with it? I'm going to give a going-away present. My parents insisted on a small farewell dinner before I left for London. They invited close friends and family. Naturally, word got out. Julian showed up uninvited. He looked haggard. The baby situation had clearly taken a toll. He was holding a bouquet of wilted flowers. Serena, he said, standing at the door. Can we talk? Please. I know I messed up. I know I pushed too hard. But I love you. We were supposed to get married. My father moved to block him, but I touched his arm. It's okay, Dad. Let him in. I have something to say to him anyway. Julian's face lit up with pathetic hope. He walked in, ignoring the glares from my relatives. I'm so glad you're being reasonable, he whispered, trying to take my hand. The baby, he's in foster care now. It's for the best. We can start over. I'll wait for you while you study. Or you could stay? We could try again? I stepped back, avoiding his touch. Actually, Julian, I have a surprise for you. I signaled to my mom, who turned on the large TV in the living room. I had connected my laptop earlier. What is this? Julian asked, smiling nervously. A montage of our memories. Something like that. The screen flickered to life. But it wasn't photos of us. It was the DNA test results. Enlarged. Probability of paternity, 99.99%. Father, Julian Marks. The room gasped. Julian froze. The flowers dropped from his hand. Then the next slide. The bank transfers to Chloe's aunt. The photos of Chloe pregnant. The time-stamped chat logs I had recovered from an old cloud account Julian thought he had deleted. Messages between him and Chloe discussing the problem and how to get Serena to take it. Chloe, I can't keep him anymore, Julian. My career is just starting. If people find out I have a bastard, I'm ruined. Julian, don't worry. Serena is soft. She loves me. I'll make up a story about finding him. She'll raise him, we'll get married, and you can be the godmother. We'll all be together. The silence in the room was deafening. My mother looked like she was about to faint. My father looked ready to kill. You. Julian choked out. Where did you get this? It doesn't matter, I said calmly. What matters is that everyone knows. You didn't find a pitiful abandoned baby, Julian. You abandoned your own son. You tried to trap me into raising your mistress's child, so you could play happy family with both of us on my dime. I walked up to him. He was shaking. We are done, I said. And don't worry about the baby being in foster care. I sent a copy of this file to Child Protective Services this morning. They know who the parents are now. You'll be hearing from them regarding child support. And Chloe? Well, I imagine the hospital board might be interested in knowing their pediatric nurse abandoned her own child to manipulate a patient. Julian fell to his knees. Serena, please. My job. My reputation. Should have thought of that before you tried to ruin my life, I said. Get out, my father roared. He grabbed Julian by the collar and physically threw him out the front door. As Julian lay on the lawn sobbing, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders that had been there for 30 years. London was gray, rainy, and beautiful. I threw myself into my studies. Art history. It was the dream I had buried in my past life. I spent my days in museums and my nights in the library. I didn't date. I didn't look back. But the past has a way of echoing. 6 months later, I got a call from my mom. You won't believe it, she said, her voice dripping with gossip. Julian and Chloe got married. Really? I asked, stirring my tea. A shotgun wedding? More like a court-ordered one. CPS mandated that if they wanted to keep the child out of the system, they had to provide a stable home. Since the DNA test proved paternity, they were on the hook. Julian's parents were furious, of course. They disowned him. And Chloe? She lost her job. The hospital has a strict code of ethics. Abandoning a child, even temporarily, didn't look good. She's working as a waitress now. Julian is doing delivery driving. His company fired him after the scandal broke. And the baby? Lo. That's his name. He's difficult apparently. Colic. Health issues from the pneumonia. They're drowning in medical bills. I closed my eyes. Lo. My son from another life. The boy who had told me to die. I hope they treat him well, I said. Not out of love, but out of basic humanity. They're miserable, Mom said with satisfaction. I saw Julian at the supermarket. He looked 10 years older. He asked about you. What did you say? I told him you were happy. And rich. And out of his league. I laughed. Thanks, Mom. 3 years passed. I graduated with honors. I landed a job at a prestigious gallery in New York. I was living the life I was meant to have. I returned home for a visit during the holidays. The town looked the same, but smaller. I was at a coffee shop, reading a book, when I felt a shadow over my table. I looked up. It was a little boy, about 3 years old. He looked messy, with chocolate on his face and clothes that were too small. Lady, he said, can I have your cookie? It was Leo. My heart stopped for a second. He had the same eyes, the same demanding tone. Before I could answer, a woman rushed over. Lo. Stop bothering people. It was Chloe. She looked haggard. Her hair was frizzy, her face lined with exhaustion. She wore a stained apron. She grabbed Leo's arm, then looked up at me. She froze. Serena? I closed my book slowly. Hello, Chloe. She stared at me. I was wearing a tailored cashmere coat, diamond earrings, looking every inch the successful curator. She looked like a woman defeated by life. You look good, she whispered. I am good. Julian walked in then. He was carrying a stack of delivery boxes. He saw us. He dropped the boxes. Serena? He walked over, ignoring Chloe. You're back. Just visiting, I said. I heard you're in New York now. Big time. He ran a hand through his thinning hair. That's great. Really? He looked at Leo, who was now whining and tugging at Chloe's apron. It's been hard, Serena, Julian said, his voice dropping to that familiar, wheedling tone. Raising a kid, it's so hard. We're barely making ends meet. If things had been different. If I had been stupid. I finished for him. He flinched. If you had been kind. I laughed. It was a genuine laugh of disbelief. Julian, look at your life. Look at your wife. Look at your son. This is the life you chose. You plotted for it. You lied for it. You just wanted someone else to pay for it. I stood up, gathering my things. I saved myself, I said. And in doing so, I forced you to step up. You should be thanking me. You finally got to be a father. I looked down at Leo. He was staring at my cookie again. I picked it up and handed it to him. Here, I said. Enjoy it. It's the last thing you'll ever get from me. I walked out of the coffee shop. I heard Chloe start to cry, and Julian start to yell at her. 5 years later, I was at a charity auction in New York. I was bidding on a rare Ming vase for the gallery. Sold. To the lady in red for $2 million. I smiled and lowered my paddle. After the event, a young man approached me. He was handsome, dressed in a sharp suit. Miss Serena? Yes. My name is Mark. I used to work with Julian. Back in the day. I recognized him. The man who had accidentally interrupted us that morning to give Julian an excuse to leave the baby. I remember you. I said coolly. The accomplice. He blushed. I wanted to apologize. I really did. I didn't know the whole story back then. Julian told me he was helping a friend. It's water under the bridge, Mark. I thought you should know, he said, shifting uncomfortably. Julian died last week. I paused. How? Stroke. Overwork. Stress. He had 2 jobs. Chloe left him a year ago. Ran off with some guy she met at the diner. Left Julian with the kid. And the kid? Lo. He's in the system now. No living relatives willing to take him. Julian's parents died years ago. I felt a strange numbness. In my past life, I was the one who died of overwork. I was the one discarded. The scales had balanced, brutally. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Mark hesitated. Julian, he left a letter. For you. It was in his wallet when he collapsed. He handed me a crumpled, stained envelope. I didn't want to take it. But curiosity is a powerful thing. I took it. Thank you. I waited until I was back in my penthouse to open it. I poured a glass of wine and sat by the window overlooking the city lights. Serena, if you're reading this, I'm probably gone. I'm so tired, Serena. Every day is a struggle. Leo hates me. He blames me for his mother leaving. He's just like I was, selfish. I think about that day all the time. The day you closed the door. I hated you for a long time. But watching you succeed from afar, I realized something. You were the only good thing that ever happened to me. And I tried to use you like a tool. I'm sorry. Not because I want forgiveness, but because I want you to know that you won. You escaped. Don't look for Leo. He's batseed. Just like me. Just like Chloe. Live well. Julian. I stared at the letter. It wasn't redemption. It was just a final admission of defeat. I walked to the fireplace and tossed the letter in. I watched it burn, just as I had watched my old life burn years ago. 10 years later. I was in my 50s now, a respected figure in the art world. I never married, but I wasn't lonely. I had friends, I had art, I had peace. I was judging a student art competition. I walked through the gallery looking at the submissions. One painting caught my eye. It was dark, chaotic. A figure standing in a storm, holding a small, dying bird. The title was Inheritance. I looked at the artist's tag. Leo Marks. Age 18. I froze. I looked around. I saw a young man standing in the corner. He looked rough, with tattoos on his neck and a scowl on his face. But he had Julian's jawline and Chloe's eyes. He was watching me look at his painting. I walked over to him. This is powerful, I said. He shrugged. It's just paint. It's anger, I said. And grief. He looked at me, really looked at me. There was no recognition in his eyes. He didn't know who I was. To him, I was just a rich lady judging his work. My dad died when I was 8, he said abruptly. My mom left before that. I grew up in group homes. Anger is all I have. And talent, I said. He scoffed. Talent doesn't pay rent. I looked at the painting again. It was good. Raw, unrefined, but undeniably talented. In another life, this boy was my son. He sucked me dry. He told me to die. In this life, he was a stranger. A victim of his parents' choices. I had a choice. I could walk away. I could leave him to his fate. Or I could do what I should have done from the beginning. Help on my own terms, not as a victim, but as a patron. I want to buy it, I said. His eyes widened. What? The painting. I want to buy it for the gallery. And I want to offer you a scholarship. To the Art Institute. He stared at me suspicious. Why? You don't know me. I know art. I lied. And I know that sometimes all a person needs is one door to open instead of slamming shut. He looked at the painting, then back at me. The hardness in his eyes melted, just a fraction. Thank you, he whispered. Don't thank me yet, I said. It's hard work. If you slack off, the scholarship is gone. I won't, he said fiercely. I have nothing else. I bought the painting. I set up the scholarship anonymously. I never told him who I was. I never tried to be his mother. I watched him from a distance over the years. He struggled. He faltered. But he kept painting. He channeled his rage into art instead of destruction. He became a successful artist. Not a world-renowned one, but a working one. He had a life. And I had mine. I am old now. The terminal illness from my first life never came. Stress, it turns out, was the killer. I sit in my garden in London. The sun is setting. I have no regrets. I didn't save Julian. I didn't save Chloe. They made their beds. But I saved myself. And in a strange, roundabout way, I saved the boy too. Not by being his mother, but by letting him find his own way. And then offering a hand when he was ready to take it. The cycle of usage and abuse was broken. I close my eyes and listen to the wind in the trees. It sounds like freedom. The end.